They say that in a town surrounded by mountains lived a girl named Luna, who had lost her mother when she was barely taking her first steps. Illness had taken her away in winter, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. Since then, Luna and her father lived alone in a wooden house at the end of the road, where the wind blew hard and the nights were long. Her father worked as a carpenter, carving furniture for the town's families, and although he earned just enough to survive, he always made sure his daughter lacked nothing. Luna had inherited her mother's noble heart. She was a girl with big, expressive eyes who always found a way to help whoever needed it. If she saw an elderly person carrying firewood, she ran to offer help. If a neighbor needed water from the well, Luna went without being asked. Her kindness was known throughout the town, and although she lived with little, she always had a smile to share. Every morning, her father left before dawn for his workshop in the center of town. Luna stayed home alone, sweeping the wooden floor, washing clothes in the nearby stream, cooking what little they had. But what weighed most heavily on her wasn't the work, but the silence. That silence that became deafening when the sun set and her father still hadn't returned. She would sit by the window, watching the dusty road, waiting to see her father's figure appear among the trees. Sometimes, when the loneliness became too heavy, Luna would close her eyes and remember her mother's voice singing to her before sleep. Those memories were her refuge, but also her torment. One afternoon, when the sky was tinged with orange and shadows stretched over the house, her father returned earlier than usual. Luna noticed he was different. His face bore an expression she couldn't decipher, as if he carried an invisible weight. He sat across from her at the small kitchen table and took her hands tenderly. He told her there was something important they needed to talk about. Luna felt a knot in her stomach, but nodded silently. Her father explained that loneliness was consuming him too, that he missed having company when he returned from work, that he felt she needed a female figure in her life. He confessed that he had met a woman in town, a widow who also lived alone with her daughter. He asked what she thought about the possibility of him remarrying. Luna felt a whirlwind of emotions. Part of her clung to her mother's memory, to the idea that no one could take her place. But another part, the most sincere one, recognized that her father was right. Perhaps a new family could bring warmth to that cold house. Perhaps she herself would stop feeling so lost. So, with a maturity that didn't correspond to her age, she told her father to do what he thought was right, that she would support him. Her father hugged her tightly, feeling both relief and guilt for asking so much of someone so young. Not many weeks passed before the wedding took place. The new wife was named Dalila, a woman with a calculating gaze and forced smile. She brought with her her daughter, a teenager named Esmeralda, whose name contrasted with her opaque and bitter personality. Esmeralda was the same age as Luna, but while Luna radiated light, Esmeralda seemed to absorb it. From the first day, it was clear they wouldn't be sisters, but rivals forced to share the same roof. Esmeralda looked at Luna with contempt, as if her very existence were an offense. And Dalila, although at first she pretended kindness in front of Luna's father, was already beginning to show cracks in her mask. At first, everything seemed to work. The father treated both girls with the same affection, bought them fabric to make dresses, brought them fruit from the market, tried to build a harmonious home. But then came the news that would change everything. A merchant from the neighboring town offered the father temporary work that would last several months, but would pay triple what he normally earned. It was an opportunity he couldn't refuse, a way to ensure a better future for his family. So, with a divided heart, he accepted. Before leaving, he took Dalila's hands and begged her to care for Luna as if she were her own daughter, to protect her and treat her with love. Dalila nodded with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The first days after the father's departure were tolerable. Dalila kept up appearances, distributed tasks fairly, prepared food for both. But as weeks passed and the father's letters became less frequent, Dalila's true nature began to emerge. It started with small things. Luna had to wake up earlier, do the heavier tasks, eat leftovers while Esmeralda received the best portions. Dalila justified everything with excuses. That Luna was stronger, that she was used to work, that Esmeralda had a delicate constitution. Luna didn't complain. She had learned that kindness sometimes requires silence. If you're enjoying this story and want to know how it continues, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details. But the real break came one spring afternoon. Luna was sitting in the small garden in front of the house, sewing a torn dress, when a young man from town passed by. His name was Matteo, son of the region's most prosperous merchant. Matteo stopped when he saw her, captivated not only by her face, which shone under the sunlight, but by the serenity that emanated from her. He approached shyly and asked her name. Luna, with blushed cheeks, responded in a low voice before getting up and returning to the house. That brief encounter was enough for Matteo to be enchanted. That same night, he told his father about the young woman he had met. The merchant, a businessman but also a man of heart, saw the sincerity in his son's eyes and decided to act immediately. The next day, the merchant and Matteo arrived at the house with a formal marriage proposal. Dalila received them with poorly disguised surprise, but upon learning who they were, her mind began weaving plans. Without thinking twice, she ran to get Esmeralda, dressed her in the best dress she had, combed her hair, and pushed her toward the room where the visitors waited. Matteo frowned when he saw her. With politeness but firmness, he explained there was a misunderstanding, that the young woman he was looking for was named Luna. Dalila felt rage rising in her chest, but maintained her composure. With a trembling voice, she denied knowing anyone by that name. She insisted that Esmeralda was her only daughter. Matteo and his father exchanged confused looks and finally withdrew, leaving Dalila boiling with jealousy. That night marked the beginning of hell for Luna. Dalila, consumed by envy, began treating her not as a stepdaughter, but as a servant. She woke her before dawn to clean the entire house, wash everyone's clothes, cook 3 meals a day. She forbade her to go out, took away any decent dress she had, forced her to sleep in a corner of the kitchen while Esmeralda slept in the room they once shared. And worst of all, every time a suitor came asking for Luna, Dalila presented Esmeralda and denied the other girl's existence. Luna, by her gentle nature, didn't know how to defend herself. She didn't understand how someone could be so cruel without reason. Months passed, and Luna began to wither. Her face, once radiant, became pale. Her eyes lost their sparkle. Her hands filled with calluses and scars. She felt invisible, as if she had ceased to exist for the world. Sometimes, at night, she cried silently, wondering if her father would ever return, if he remembered he had a daughter waiting for him. Hope became harder to hold on to each day. One sweltering summer day, the house's water ran out. Dalila, with a tone of contempt, ordered Luna to go to the forest well to fill the jugs. Luna took the largest pitcher and headed down the path that led to the well. As she walked under the burning sun, she thought about how she had reached this point, how life can change so drastically. When she reached the well, she found that the rope holding the bucket was rotten. When she tried to lower the bucket, the rope broke, and the bucket fell to the bottom of the well with a dry thud that resonated like an echo of her own despair. Luna collapsed beside the well, hugging the empty pitcher. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't return without water, but she had no way to get it either. Tears began rolling down her cheeks, mixing with the dust on her face. It was then that she heard a soft voice. An elderly man with a silver beard and kind eyes was approaching down the path. He wore simple but clean clothes and walked with the help of a carved staff. He asked what was wrong. Luna, between sobs, explained her situation. The old man listened attentively, nodding with understanding. Then, with a mysterious smile, he told her about a place few knew. He told her that if she followed the forest path to the east, she would reach a hidden garden where a spring of crystalline waters flowed. He warned her that the path wouldn't be easy, that she should pay attention to everything she found, because that garden was not ordinary. Luna, without many options, thanked the old man and took the indicated path. She walked for what seemed like hours, passing through increasingly dense trees, until finally the leaves parted and revealed before her eyes a spectacle that took her breath away. The garden was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. Flowers of impossible colors sprouted everywhere. Trees laden with fruit gleamed under the filtered light, and in the center, a spring of water so clear it looked like liquid starlight flowed from the rocks. Luna approached slowly, feeling she had entered a dream. She filled her pitcher carefully, marveled by the purity of the water. When she finished, she lifted the pitcher and began walking back. She hadn't gone far when she heard a voice that seemed to come from the wind. She stopped and looked around. Before her, an enormous willow extended its branches toward the sky. And then, clearly, the tree spoke. It asked her to share some of the water she carried, for its roots were thirsty. Luna didn't hesitate for a second. She tilted the pitcher and poured water over the willow's roots. The tree sighed with relief and with a melodious voice said, "For your kindness, may your hair grow strong and long like my branches." Luna smiled, not fully understanding, and continued on her way. Shortly after, she heard another voice. This time it came from a rosebush whose flowers were the most intense red she had ever seen. The roses begged her to water them, for the heat was withering them. Luna, without thinking, tilted the pitcher again and let the water fall on the rosebush's roots. The flowers straightened, revitalized, and gratefully told her, "For your generosity, may your cheeks shine with the color of our petals." Luna thanked them and continued on, though the pitcher was beginning to weigh more than expected. Further ahead, a field of white jasmine begged her to save them from the drought. Luna, although she knew she had little water left, couldn't refuse. She poured more water on the flowers, which released an intoxicating aroma. The flowers whispered, "For your purity of heart, may your skin be as white as our petals." Luna continued, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. Finally, when she was about to leave the forest, a black raven perched on a branch asked her for water. It was exhausted, almost without strength. Luna, although she had very little water left and knew Dalila would be furious if she returned without the pitcher full, couldn't ignore the bird's suffering. She offered it the last she had. The raven drank eagerly and before flying away, told her, "For your boundless compassion, may your hair be dark as the deepest night." Then it disappeared among the trees. Luna returned home with the pitcher almost empty, expecting Dalila's punishment. But when she entered and Dalila saw her, the woman froze. Luna didn't understand why. It wasn't until she looked at her reflection in the water that she understood. Her hair had grown to her waist, black and shiny like obsidian. Her skin glowed with a pearly white. Her cheeks had a natural blush that seemed painted by the gods. She had transformed into the most beautiful creature that had ever existed in that town. Dalila, between shock and envy, demanded to know what had happened. Luna, confused, could only say she had gone to the garden as the old man had indicated. That night, Dalila didn't sleep. Her mind schemed restlessly. At dawn, she woke Esmeralda and ordered her to go to the same place. Esmeralda, lazy by nature, refused. But Dalila insisted so much that she finally convinced her, telling her there was surely a secret in that garden that would make her more beautiful than Luna. Esmeralda took a picture and left reluctantly. When she arrived at the well and saw the broken rope, she sat with annoyance to wait, without trying to find a solution. The same old man appeared before her and asked what she needed. Esmeralda, with a harsh tone and without respect, demanded that he tell her how to get to the magical garden. The old man, surprised by her rudeness, still showed her the way. Esmeralda followed it without thanking him. When she reached the garden and saw the spring, she filled her pitcher hastily. On her way back, the willow asked her for water. Esmeralda, thinking the water was valuable only for her, flatly refused. The willow, offended, told her, "For your selfishness, may your body grow as disproportionate as my old branches." Esmeralda laughed with contempt and continued. The rosebush asked her for water. Esmeralda ignored it. The roses, hurt, said, "For your cruelty, may your eyes burn with the red of fire." The jasmine asked for help. Esmeralda trampled them as she passed. The flowers whispered, "For your coldness, may your hair become as white as ashes." The raven begged her for a drop of water. Esmeralda threw a stone at it. The raven, before flying, said, "For your wickedness, may your face darken like the moonless night." When Esmeralda arrived home, Dalila screamed in horror. Her daughter had become a grotesque creature. Her body had lengthened unnaturally. Her eyes were red and teary. Her hair was white like an old woman's, and her skin had become grayish and rough. Dalila fell to her knees, crying, cursing the day she had mistreated Luna. Weeks passed. Dalila tried everything to reverse her daughter's curse, but nothing worked. Finally, Luna's father returned from his trip, bringing money and gifts for everyone. But what he found in his house left him speechless. Luna told him everything: the mistreatment, the humiliations, the rejected suitors, the enchanted garden. The father, with tears of rage and regret, threw Dalila and Esmeralda out of the house that same night. Luna and her father lived in peace again, but the story doesn't end there. Days later, while Luna was helping her father at the market, Mateo saw her again. This time, he didn't let the opportunity pass. He approached Luna's father directly and, with respect, asked permission to court his daughter. The father, remembering Luna's words about the young man who had come looking for her, gladly accepted. Mateo and Luna were married months later in a simple but love-filled ceremony. Luna never forgot the lessons of the enchanted garden. She understood that every act of kindness, no matter how small it may seem, returns multiplied, and that true power isn't in external beauty, but in the light we carry within. If you made it this far and want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and share with someone who needs to remember that kindness always finds its reward. In the arid lands of the south, where the wind dragged the sand and the sun fell like a hammer upon the earth, there lived a potter named Rashid. He had a modest workshop beside an almost dry oasis, and there he raised only his two sons, Samir, the eldest, of impulsive character and noble heart, and Jalil, the younger, quiet but observant as a hawk. Their mother had died years before, and since then Rashid worked day and night molding vessels and jugs that he sold in the nearby village market. His life was simple, without luxuries or surprises, until one day everything changed. One hot afternoon, while the boys helped load the kiln with firewood, Rashid emerged from the workshop with a strange expression on his face. He said nothing. He simply walked toward the abandoned well behind the house, looked around nervously, and knelt beside a large stone. His sons, curious, watched him from afar. Rashid lifted the stone with effort and pulled out a worn cloth sack. He opened it slightly, and for an instant, Something gleamed under the evening light. Then he quickly put it away and covered the hiding place again. Samir, unable to contain his curiosity, came out of hiding and called to his father. "What are you hiding, father? Why do you act as if someone were pursuing you?" Rashid startled, but seeing his two sons before him, he sighed deeply. "Come with me," he said in a weary voice. "It's time you knew the truth." The three sat under the shade of a dried palm tree, and Rashid began to speak. "Many years ago, when you were barely children, a strange man came to this place. He was a merchant of fine fabrics. He came from distant lands and brought with him a fortune in gold and silver coins. But on the road, he was attacked by bandits. He managed to escape with his life, though badly wounded, and arrived here asking for help. I took him in, healed him, gave him water and food. He spent several days recovering in our home." Samir and Jalil listened in silence, eyes wide with amazement. Rashid continued, "Before leaving, the merchant gave me that sack and said, 'Keep it for me. I will return someday to collect it. If I don't return in 10 years, it's yours.' I accepted, not out of ambition, but because I felt he was an honest man and deserved my loyalty. Almost 15 years have passed since then, and he never returned. But I haven't touched a single coin. That wealth doesn't belong to me." Jalil, always reflective, asked, "And why do you hide it from us, father? You've done nothing wrong." Rashid lowered his gaze. "Because I fear that knowledge of that wealth will awaken in you desires you shouldn't have. I fear that temptation will reach you as it has reached so many good men." Samir, indignant, responded, "Father, you've raised us with honor. We would never touch what isn't ours." Rashid smiled sadly. "I know, my son, but the world doesn't always respect honor." The days passed peacefully after that conversation. But one morning, while Rashid prepared the clay for his vessels, a tall, thin man appeared on the road, dressed in worn clothes and leaning on a walking stick. His face was marked by the sun, and his eyes were gray as ash. He approached the workshop and greeted with a firm voice. "Are you Rashid the potter?" he asked. Rashid nodded, puzzled. The man smiled. "I am Faisal, brother of the merchant you helped years ago. My brother died 2 months ago in distant lands, but before dying he spoke to me of you. He told me he had left you a sack with his fortune and that I should come to collect it." Rashid felt a chill. "I'm very sorry. Your brother was a noble man. Come, I'll show you where it is." They walked together toward the well, followed closely by Samir and Jalil. Rashid lifted the stone, put his hand in the hole and searched for the sack. But he didn't find it. He searched deeper, with growing desperation. Nothing. "It can't be," he murmured. "It was here. I swear on my life, it was here." Faisal looked at him coldly. "Are you telling me you lost my brother's fortune?" Rashid, pale, shook his head. "I didn't lose it. Someone took it. But I don't know who." Faisal clenched his fists. "Then you're responsible. You accepted it. You were supposed to guard it. And now you'll pay me for your negligence. If you're enjoying this story and want to know how it ends, leave me a comment telling me what you think happened to the sack. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the ending." Faisal went directly to the village and filed a complaint with the local judge, a severe man named Hamza, known for his inflexibility in matters of justice. Rashid was summoned to the tribunal, and there, before a room full of curious neighbors, he had to defend himself. "Sir Judge," said Rashid in a trembling voice, "I haven't stolen anything. I guarded that fortune as if it were my own life. I don't know what happened, but I swear I didn't touch it." Judge Hamza observed him with skepticism. "And who else knew about that hiding place?" Rashid hesitated a moment. "Only my 2 sons. But they would never do such a thing." Hamza leaned back in his chair. Rashid, even if I believe your word, the law is clear. You accepted the responsibility of guarding that fortune. If it doesn't appear, you must compensate this man or face prison. Rashid tried to protest, but the judge raised his hand. I give you 1 month. If in that time the sack doesn't appear, or you don't bring me proof of your innocence, I will sentence you to 5 years in prison. And so, Rashid was taken to a provisional cell while the deadline was fulfilled. Samir and Jalil were devastated. They knew their father was innocent, but had no way to prove it. They decided to act on their own. Samir, the impulsive one, wanted to go find Faisal and confront him, convinced that he himself had stolen the sack. But Jalil, more cautious, proposed another idea. Brother, before accusing, we must investigate. Someone knew about the hiding place. Someone took it. And that someone left clues. For days, the brothers searched every corner of the workshop, the yard, the well. They questioned the neighbors, looked for footprints, any sign, but they found nothing. Desperation began to invade them. Until one afternoon, while Jalil was checking old vessels piled in a forgotten corner of the workshop, he found something strange. A broken jar he didn't recognize. Inside were remains of dried clay, and rolled among them, a small piece of fabric. It was the same color as the sack his father had kept. Jalil ran to show it to Samir. Look at this. Someone was here. Someone touched the sack and left this behind. Samir examined the fabric carefully. But who? No one enters the workshop without our permission. Then Jalil remembered something. Do you remember the helper father hired a few months ago? That quiet young man who came to work in the afternoons. Samir frowned. Yes, but father fired him because he wasn't trustworthy. He said he was always looking where he shouldn't. They decided to look for that young man. They asked around the village and discovered his name was Tariq and that he now worked at the market, selling dates. They went to find him, but when Tariq saw them coming, he tried to flee. Samir, faster, caught up with him and grabbed his arm. Why are you running, Tariq? What are you hiding? Tariq, nervous, denied everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't done anything. But Jalil took out the piece of fabric and showed it to him. We found this in the workshop. It's from the sack that disappeared. And you were the only stranger who was near the hiding place. Tariq turned pale, and finally, with a broken voice, he confessed. All right, I took it. But it wasn't my idea. It was Faisal who asked me to. The brothers were astonished. What are you saying? Tariq, trembling, explained. Faisal came to see me weeks ago. He told me he knew that Rashid was keeping something valuable and offered me money if I helped him recover it. He told me that sack belonged to him by right, that his brother had left it to him, not to Rashid. I needed the money, so I accepted. One night, while you were sleeping, I entered the workshop, went to the well, and took the sack. I gave it to Faisal the next day. He paid me a few coins and told me that if anyone asked, I knew nothing. Samir exploded in fury. You've betrayed us. Because of you, our father is in prison. Jalil stopped him. Brother, calm down. This is what we needed. Now we have the truth. They took Tariq before Judge Hamza, who listened to the confession with a grave expression. The judge ordered that Faisal be brought immediately. When the man entered the room, he still maintained his air of superiority, but seeing Tariq there, his face changed. Hamza interrogated him harshly. Is what this young man says true? Did you orchestrate the theft of the sack you then claimed as yours? Faisal tried to deny it, but Tariq, scared and repentant, insisted on his version. Finally, under pressure, Faisal admitted part of the truth. Yes, I planned to recover that sack. But it's not theft. That money belonged to my brother, and therefore It belongs to me. Rashid had no right to keep it. Hamza struck the table furiously. Silence. Your brother entrusted that fortune to Rashid under a clear agreement. You have no right whatsoever to it. And furthermore, you have deceived this court. You have bribed a young man to commit a crime, and you have caused the unjust imprisonment of an honest man. The judge ordered that Rashid be brought immediately. When the potter entered the room, gaunt and confused, his sons ran to embrace him. Hamza, with a solemn voice, declared, Rashid, after an exhaustive investigation, your innocence has been proven. Faisal will be sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud, bribery, and false testimony. Tariq will receive a lesser sentence for his cooperation, but must return what he received and work to compensate for the damage. Rashid, with tears in his eyes, could barely believe what he was hearing. Then Hamza added, and as for the sack, Faisal must reveal where he hid it. Faisal, defeated, confessed that he had buried it under the floor of his own house. It was recovered that same afternoon and returned to Rashid. Back at home, Rashid sat with his sons under the same palm tree where everything had begun. He opened the sack and contemplated the gold and silver coins that gleamed under the moonlight. My sons, he said in a serene voice, this wealth is not ours, but the merchant is no longer here, and his brother has proven himself unworthy. We will use this money to help those who need it in this village, and with what's left over, we'll improve our workshop to give work to more people. Samir and Jalil nodded, proud of their father. Jalil asked, Father, what did you learn from all this? Rashid smiled. I learned that honesty always finds its way, even when the world tries to hide it, and that we must trust those around us, but also be vigilant, because not everyone has a clean heart. The months passed, and Rashid kept his word. He distributed much of the fortune among the poorest families in the village, built a new community kiln, and hired unemployed young people so they could learn the pottery trade. His workshop became a place of hope and dignified work. Samir and Jalil grew into men of integrity, always remembering their father's teachings. If you made it this far and want to keep listening to stories that make you reflect, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any video.